So we're live again. I know it's the last live has been quite a while. The last is literally we are checking out the predictions for Ableton Live Lite, right? And after half a year, pretty much close to that because it's understandable. It's the pandemic, and now that it's out, let us check, whether our predictions are correct. But sadly, no comping. Okay, so spoiler alert. That is one feature that I'm very, very looking forward to, but they didn't really include it in the Lite version, which is understandable, of course. It is a very powerful feature. It is like the one of the how do you put it in English terms? It's like a triumph card, sort of like comping. Apparently, like comping is a thing now. So Bitweek 4 just launched, and they also showcasing a lot of their comping features. And I guess it's a good thing that finally comping is available in most DAW. Back then, I heard stories where friends who use Ableton, they have to sort of they prefer to sort of record and vocals and comp using maybe like Logic or even Cubase because they're on board. And I think like they comes with like even pitch correcting, so some Melodyne and something similar to that range of products. But then now you can do, of course, there's still no pitch correct. So but then at least you can do comping. Then you rely a bit on maybe perhaps like Melodyne or Waves Tune, and it's good to go, right? But it is still a pretty solid update. So today we're gonna just have a look at the different updates that we sort of got, right? And yeah, so let's see. Okay, so Live Lite is finally here. Also, if let's say you do own the Live 10 Lite, you can just log into the website, and then you just go to here, get Live 11 Lite, and you can just choose your operating system and click download, and then you can authorize it, and then start making music with Live 11, right? And when I first launched Live 11 yesterday, when it's first announced, and I was checking out their demo song, and it was so good. It's like when you listen to the demo song, which we'll check out later on, you realize that you can really do a lot with just Live Lite. And 8 tracks, although this whole channel has revolved around this whole 8-track thing for quite a while. Like we have 2 different videos, but the one that gain tractions are the 8 tracks, and we talk more about Ableton Live Lite, like how you sort of layer more than 8 tracks. Of course, there's like a bit of hack here and there, like hosting tracks within drum racks, for example, or freezing tracks, and again also hosting frozen tracks in drum rack. So we'll leave a link to that video down below. But then the 8 tracks limit is still in Live 11 Lite, so they didn't expand, like give 12 or maybe 16, but they do increase scenes, right? So now you can host up to 16 scenes. Back then you only have 8 tracks, 8 scenes, but then now like you can do like a lot more, right? And you can sort of see like Live 11 Lite, they sort of you can see that they are pivoting more towards live performances, and I think that's a good thing, because nowadays like there are a lot of Lite DAW or even like free digital audio workstation. So like you sort of have to compete and stand out, have the edge, or of what differentiate you with a lot of other DAW, right? And so Live 11 Lite, especially this particular update, they sort of increase a lot in giving you the capabilities to and tools to really do quite an advanced live set. Even with Lite, we look on later on some of the new plugins and the new workflow that they might want to sort of go towards that direction with Live 11 Lite. All right. So the basics are all still there. So of course just to put it clear out there, Live Lite, technically it is not really a free software, so you need to sort of buy audio interface, a MIDI controller, or we also did mention in one of our first Ableton Live centric video, in that you can get Lite just by purchasing an iOS app, right? So this app is called Trick Track. So it costs about, I think, $10 or maybe 16 or 9, the most $19, and you get a full-fledged iOS app that you can really do quite a lot of things with it. And it comes with a Lite, right? So because they want to sort of allow you to expand beyond like just playing in phone or your iPad. And so the app itself, you can sort of export your project, I think, if I'm mistaken, in Ableton Live format. And of course, there is Link. So Ableton Link is this technology that like sort of sync different apps and softwares through Wi-Fi and LAN, for example. So if you say you're playing in iPad, and then like another collaborators is using Live, then you can sort of connect to the same network, and then you can sort of sync every softwares up together, so you can sort of run this very seamless performance, right? And yeah, just by that, $20 and you can get a Lite, and as compared to, let's say, if you say you buy a interface or a MIDI controller, which could cost you up to a few hundred. And even so, Lite, I think like last year, for example, like they are giving out Lite, through, I think, if I'm mistaken, Splice. So time to time they do give free giveaways, and of course they do have a very long trial. And like last year during the pandemic, they are giving like trials up to half a year. Like even now, you want to go and try out their full Ableton Live version, they give you up to about 90 days, which is about 3 months, which is a lot of time for you to actually do a single, or even a short EP, right? So let's look at what Live has sort of updated to cater better towards the live performance crowd, right? So we sort of predicted that like a few new Live 11 features that is like their trump card, is that comping is one, and then of course they now finally supports MPE, MIDI polyphonic expressions, right? So MPE is like not an easy fit. Before this, if you use like your Rolly C board, for example, with Ableton Live 10, you will need to sort of go through a lot of mapping, very advanced instrument rack setup, just to capture every detail of MPE. And now finally, they sort of done all that under the hood, right? So just by plugging in, and you can easily load the MPE. They even have MPE instruments, right within Live 11 Lite, right? So MPE, right? So that's the thing that is the route that they are going towards, which is why I mentioned Live 11 Lite, they're going more, they're focusing a lot more on the live performance aspect of this, right? And so although there's no comping, as mentioned, this is still a pretty solid update, right? So you do get more scenes. So you have like up to 16 scenes, right? So scenes are, let me scroll down to sort of see it. So yes, so session view. So session view is the one of the special part of Ableton, right? Of course, nowadays, everyone is following their footsteps. Now Logic is doing the same. It's sort of technically it is the brother of Ableton, so they also have that inside. I think like not sure, maybe not Cubase, but then yeah, you can sort of see like a lot of DAW sort of move towards this kind of non-linear writing / performance workflow. And the session view is one thing that really they yes. Speaking about scenes, so basically you see all these little boxes over here. So let's just pull up the software. So yes, so all these little scenes over here, now you can host up to 16 of it. So you can go in and we can insert scene, and there you go. Like back then 8 is the limit. Right now you can sort of have access up to 16, right? And this is the view, the page that people use a lot in performances. So maybe they would sort of program some buttons to overdub MIDI, or even use this as sort of like a live looper sort of function, and then they sort of record different ideas at different parts. As you can see, like in this demo song, they sort of craft the ideas of like intro, verse, breakdown, all different parts using per line sort of scene, all right, per scene. So now you can have a lot more. That means that when you have a lot more, then you can sort of host more different song parts. So let's say that maybe you want to perform maybe 2 or 3 songs at the same time, so you can sort of host multiple different song parts. For example, like you want to leave maybe 4 scenes for song 1, another 4 scenes for song 2, and 4 scenes for song 3, for example. And you can sort of see like they sort of updated the scenes to be a lot more advanced, so you can have individual BPM control, even though you can do that with the previous live in a more like you technically just type in the BPM, and then they will sort of trigger based on that. Now you just sort of make it a lot easier, that straightforward, that you can sort of still rename your track nicely, and then you can still key in the tempo. So every scene can have their own tempo, even time signature, right? So that's one thing that they really improve a lot in this. And of course, if you look down there, you can sort of see like macros, right? Macros is also another one that no, this is technically macro variations. So that is the term for it. So it's sort of like preset. So macros preset. So this is one thing that people use a lot, especially in performances. So let's say you want certain songs to have different settings, then you want to automate certain beat repeats, certain combi effects. You can do all those with macro variations now, right? And then when you talk about all these things, we also have to talk about the new and improved follow action, right? So follow action is pretty much there since I think I just watched a video yesterday. So it's sort of already there since about Live 2 or 3. So this performance has already been a core for Ableton Live, right? And now they sort of improve it a lot more. That you can select okay, so you can add chants. Then you can link certain clips together. Then like what's next, the follow action, isn't it? So you can do a lot of things with. If you combine it with the new tempo, scene tempo change, the new time signature, more added scenes, right? And of course we also there's also a new MIDI effects called let me just dive into it. I think it's called expression control. Yes. So expression control is like again a lot of different presets that you can sort of map to your MIDI keyboard. So MIDI keyboard is also a very crucial part of live performances. So like especially when you're performing your songs, you want to easily map this button to trigger certain effects, or this particular knob sort of maybe at the same time you wanted to control a few things, right? So expression control allows you to do a lot of those kind of advanced mapping as compared to Ableton's internal already there MIDI mapping, for example, right? And that is one thing, expression control. And then of course MPE. So MPE is also a very nice like a live performance controller. So you see like there's a lot of videos online that they can do like very detailed modulation to really bring life out of a lot of instrument. And when you combine MPE, you combine it with expression control, the more scenes, better MIDI controller integration. And that is why you see like they are really moving towards the performance, the sort of one of the best beginner DAW for performance, right? But of course when you talk about performance, it's like doesn't mean that it's not good for production, right? So there's also a lot of new things they included, especially for the production side, right? So now you can finally have access to Groove Pool, right? So Groove Pool has always not been there, like back then, right? So Groove basically is like automated swing, you can sort of say, like, so they have this swing data, you can sort of say that. So you can sort of see like if you go to the Groove Pool library, you will see that they would name their preset based on, you know, like different genres, and you see like jazz, and even like of course the basic swing 8, 16, 32, and you will also scroll down and see like MPC, right? So like swing is the one thing that, you know, really define like, you know, genres like jazz or hip hop, right? So it's also like they really derive from the old school MPC, you know, like their internal sort of, you know, algorithm on like, you know, what makes a beat bop. You can sort of say that. So like back then, you know, there's no such thing, you know. The only way to do swing is to do it traditionally. That means you go into the MIDI piano roll, and, you know, you do the work of like, you know, dragging notes, you know, front and back manually per note. But with groove, you just need to drag and drop into anything, you know. You can do it with MIDI, you can do it with audio tracks. They call it clips, right? So then they would sort of, you know, at the same time, you know, add this groove to all different instruments, right? And you can even, you know, like set, like, I think, yes, you can even extract groove, right? So this whole thing, like, maybe you listen to a song and you're like, okay, you know, you really like this how the beat, you know, like, you know, comes in at, you know, like some parts slower, some parts faster, for example, and you can extract groove data from existing songs or existing loops, and then you can apply it to your other, you know, MIDI or loops, right? So groove is a very universal thing that applies to both samples and also MIDI. And yes, you can finally have access to the full range of groove, and that definitely save out a lot of time, especially, you know, if I say you are you want to add life into your track, and, you know, like if I say you have to maybe, you know, produce from scratch. Sometimes, you know, you just sort of use I suppose like we're all guilty of, like, you know, relying too much on our mouse and keyboard, where we just sort of program in, you know, hi-hat, like, you know, tuck, 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 and just, you know, just spill in all the hi-hats, and like super robotic. And you don't want that in music, you know. You still want that, you know, that swing, that human touch to it, and groove is one of the fastest way, you know, to really achieve that, right? And that is one thing. And also, you will also realize the piano roll is a bit different from if you're coming from 10, for example. So you'll see now you also have access to scales and key, right? So back then in Live 10 or Live 9 back then, so the only way to, you know, work with piano roll is that you have to work with piano roll as it is, right? So they do have a fold function, but fold is more like, you know, they just fold to that few specific MIDI note that you have already keyed in, right? But then now you can sort of fold to scale, right? So for example, I know you work on this song, and, you know, maybe this song is in C major, and you will see, like, you know, they sort of already highlighted all the correct notes within that scale. And if you say you want to save time even more, you can fold to scale. And so every, you know, notes that you have key in will definitely be on scale. That means, you know, if you say you want to, you know, write up a program lead, for example, and maybe, you know, especially for newcomers who, you know, who might not have a lot of knowledge in music theory, or if you are like me. So fun fact, you know, I don't really have a fully professional music background. I did learn piano. I learned at a very young age. I sort of learned until grade 3, and yeah, you know, as any Asian young kid, you know, your mom sort of forces you to go learn to take a piano at a young age, and then you just sort of, you know, go and you try your best to, you know, do it. But, you know, in the end, like, you're like, okay, you know, mom, you know, this is not for me. And, you know, the music sort of comes back, you know, after, you know, when we are in high school, and, you know, the band era is like the thing. So, and I sort of pick up guitar from there on. Again, started out with classical guitar, and, you know, you sort of get back in touch with, you know, the classical notations and all those things, and you realize that, okay, nope, and back then your friends are like, you know, learning finger charts, power chords, you know, all those kind of things, like the you know, when back then, you know, we are talking about, you know, Green Day, Papa Roach, you know, all classic, you know, band music era. And so yeah, I switched to contemporary guitar, and that is when I just sort of never touch music theory much after, right? So I can play, but on the guitar, for example. So that is why recently I bought the jam stick, right? But then this is a small jam stick, so actually like it does help a lot, when you're playing scales and all those things. But as a MIDI guitar, it's still not as fluid as the actual guitar. So yeah, it's just been sitting there in the corner. All right, so. And now I'm just checking the comments for a bit. And now let us see. Okay, so we talk about groove. We talk about the performance feature. And now let's look at more on the production side of things, right? So now Live also throw in more audio effects, right? So now we finally have limiter, saturator, and also phaser, flanger, right? So I'm more excited about saturator and limiter. So for the longest time, Ableton didn't really include any limiter. The only limiter you can get your hands on is pretty much the audio effects rack. So we can go for okay. So if you're not, so I just sort of get used. I still can't get used to Live 11's category function. So you can actually turn off this feature by right-clicking, and then you can sort of turn off group in folder, and you will get your every audio effects. You can sort of choose from here. So audio effects rack, mixing and mastering. So yeah, this is the only way that you can get yourself on a limiter, right? But then you sort of like need to go through preset. That means like you need to select, for example, let's see. They sort of rename their master. Okay, so they put the master in front. So back then it's like parallel punch master, right? So all the master and the master preset, these are all like for mastering. So internally they have a limiter, but there is no way for you to tweak much. For example, like here, master punchy dance, you can sort of only tweak like one knob, but then there's just no function to select your ceiling, for example, and then your the compression ratio and all those kind of things. So now finally you have access to limiter. So see, with limiter you can sort of set your ceiling, you can set your look ahead gain, like everything. You can sort of dive in a lot deeper. And why I say like this is a very nice addition is that maybe like for the longest time I've been using third party limiter for example, if I'm recommending Live Lite to my videos, right? So maybe if you're a newcomer, for example, maybe the whole concept of VST is not as you're not as familiar. For example, like, you're just starting into Ableton Live, you're still trying to get used to the whole workflow. What is session view, what is arrangement view, and then there's still a lot more EQ. There's sense, there are a lot of things involved, and maybe like when you first started out, you wouldn't tap into VST, as soon. Maybe it could take maybe months or even years only get started in VST. So by not having a limiter, and it's just a lot harder to just master your track. For example, if you go for YouTube, for example, and you search for mastering tutorial, and all tutorial you find are like they are showing you like yes, you have to use compressor, you have to use limiter, you have to use a saturator and all those kind of things. But then you don't have access to all these tools. So by having saturator, limiter within Live Lite, they sort of make it a lot easier for newcomers, to get into production, without relying on VST first. Of course, eventually you will start to explore VST because maybe like the sound department within Live Lite, also instrument, right? By sound I mean instrument, it's not as robust. Of course, there are quite a few, right? So let's dive in to just check out the features included. So core library, you do have about 2274 instrument rack, including 25 MPE presets. And that includes drums. No, the drums are separated, so they're different, right? So, but even so, see, like although you have quite a lot of instrument, but then like basic things like maybe like guitar or piano, for example, perhaps it's a lot better to rely on other third-party free piano samples library that sort of provide a more natural sounding feel. Because in the end, like I felt like Ableton's sound are more catering towards the electronic side of things. So especially you want to go towards this traditional instrument sounds, you probably still have to rely on third-party VST, which leads us to VST. This Ableton Live Lite. One of the best features of Live Lite being a basic DAW is that yes, it supports VST, right? So if you compare it to, for example, like Logic 1 or PreSonus, is it Logic 1? The free version of Logic, and the Studio One, the free version of Studio One. So both of them don't really allow you to host VST, but of course you can argue that they are like true free, legit free. You don't need to buy anything. You can download it. If you compare it to, for example, like Cubase LE, yes, they do support VST. They even support video, right? So video is still not available in Live 11 Lite, but as mentioned, the whole direction that Live Lite 11 Lite want to go towards is really making the one of the best performance DAW for beginner, that approach, and they sort of really do a lot better as compared to if you say you look at Cubase, for example. Cubase is more like a production thing. You don't perform. In fact, I'm not sure. Do people perform with Cubase? I am curious, like whether people do perform with Cubase. But yeah, if you know, do leave in the comments down below whether like what are the ways to perform with Cubase, for example, like. Maybe you host instrument within there, but then there are a lot of other tools that probably does a better job in that sense. But yeah, so far, if you look at live sets, performances, let's sidetrack a bit. When you talk about live sets and performances, you probably deal a lot with actual traditional instruments. So you work with actual guitarist, actual drum player, and all those and things like that. So one of the thing that they also included in Live 11 Lite is tempo following. So they also did put that here, and this is also another thing that sort of again enhance the whole concept of Live 11 Lite portraying themselves as one of the best performance-centric DAW, right? So you can easily work with guitarist, a drummer, an actual instrument player, and tempo following sort of like it's like this AI that sort of constantly listens to a track in the input, and they sort of tweak the tempo according to said performer, right? So this is a very live thing. Like when you play in a band, for example, there tends to be human error here and there. The tempo might drift a bit as compared to if you're playing with a computer, a robot, that where if you set 120, it's 120 constantly. There's no human error at all. So this is like the one thing that makes it harder. Especially if I say like I have a lot of friends who ask like, hey, we want to incorporate backing track into our performances, and I always tell them like, man, look, if you have a solid drummer, go ahead. But if you don't have a solid drummer, it might not be a good idea, because backing track are fixed. There's no way to change your backing track. Like they are not another band player that would sort of slow things down or make things faster for you. So if I say you run, the whole performance is just we just go down the drain. So you don't want that to happen. And with tempo following, they sort of ease that thing up a bit. Of course, it might not be the best still, because again, it is still a robot and AI sort of listening behind algorithm. So the drift might not be like 100%. In fact, I wouldn't even put like 80% there. But I personally haven't tried it out, so I wouldn't know like how solid it is, in actually following a live in musician and really tweaking the tempo to fit like on the fly, right? So, but still, it's a good addition. So tempo following, that's one thing. And since you are here, sort of let's scroll down to look at So you see like when you see this updated for Live 11 Lite sort of features, they sort of updated the feature a bit. So instrument racks, MIDI effects rack, drum rack, they're all there even before Live 11 Lite. But then I think they sort of added customized macro control. So the whole macro variations, snapshots that we have showed just now. So all these things are available in all these newly improved racks. and same drum rack, instrument rack, simpler is the same, and let's see, chorus ensemble. I think they sort of added some new algorithms, right? And then yes, limiter, this is the one thing. Phaser flanger, this is another one. But phaser flanger, you probably don't really use it as much if I say you are just doing basic, because I think probably need to go into like more sound design territory to sort of play with that. Of course, if you say you want to add effects to your guitar, maybe it's a lot better to just download something like Guitar Rig, for example, or Amplitude. So they sort of they probably have a better phaser flanger as compared to if you're using stock, for example. In fact, yeah, they Lite don't really have amp anyway, so you probably need to get a proper amp dedicated guitar processing software to handle all these things. And then we have saturator, of course. So saturator is I use it all the time, right, for to shape sound. For example, like if you say you are doing hip hop, for example, then you probably do with a lot of 808s. Saturating 808 is a one thing that I think I bet every producers will do to really fatten things up and give it that grit to really, like as mentioned, punch through that your mix, right? And then MIDI effects, we talk about expression control. So expression control is, as mentioned, you see, like you can sort of map velocity, mod wheel pitch, aftertouch, key track to any parameter in your live set. So this is like a super nice mapping tool for live sets and performances. And you have MIDI monitor. So MIDI monitor is also a pretty nice tool. Like you can sort of play certain chords and they would sort of monitor your MIDI and give you like, okay, tell you that whether you're playing the right chord, for example, your scale, and they even like track like your MPE data, like whether you're getting the correct data to just to check whether your instruments are working, for example. That's one of the uses. And of course, yes, to track your chords, whether you're playing like the right chord and that. So I suppose like this is a very nice tool for teaching. For example, like you say you are using teaching production and you're like, hey, let's do this chord, for example, and you want to check like showcase. You can use this to showcase. I just wish they have a longer keyboard scale. Like they're showing like only 1 octave. If you say you can at least show like 2 octave, you can sort of show a lot better, because when you play chords, you rarely play like in just 1 octave. I suppose like if you're a beginner, you're playing with triads, it's good enough. But if you say you have to teach and you have to play like more advanced things, you probably stretch your chords out to at least 2 octave. Like when you go more advanced, then yes, you would go at 3, 4, like the whole longer range of chords spread. But yeah, that's the one thing I felt about MIDI monitor. And of course, you have MPE control, because MPE is now part of Live 11 Lite, right? So just sort of give you a little bit more control, other than, like just having the onboard tool. I suppose like if you own a Rolly Seaboard or any other MPE MIDI controllers, they probably have their own control center to really handle a lot more processing there, and then you sort of send it to Ableton Live, and then MPE control is just like just to sprinkle some salt and pepper to polish it up a bit to fit to your taste, for example, right? And yeah, other than that, things are still pretty much the same. Still 8 tracks, still I think, let's see, inputs is still the same. So 2 sends and returns, 8 mono inputs, 8 output, audio MIDI tracks, automation lane, advanced WAP mode. Yep. And basically that concludes Ableton Live 11 Lite, right? So a few additions that is like still make it a very, very solid tool, even though they don't have comping. I was hoping, yes, they would have comping, so I would just rely on my Live 10, and then I would just, record comp and using Live 11 Lite. But, I'll eventually buy Live, upgrade it to Live Lite. Live 11, right? Because like now, I personally, I don't really record a lot of vocals. I do more instrumental tracks, so I you don't really find a need to use comping as much, and I don't really own any MPE software, so that's why you're like maybe I'll hold off on the upgrade a bit. Perhaps next Black Friday or something, and you just update, right? So now let's just dive back in and finally check out the demo song, right? So all this while, like Ableton, their demo songs are just instrumental. They're very very basic, and of course, like it's still a solid demo song. But this demo song though, it's a full on like song like with vocals and different arrangement parts, and yeah. So without further ado, let's listen to this track.
Doing silly things just to make you look at me. Couldn't win the game, but I might try again. If I learn my lesson, babe, it's a possibility. And I don't know if I see you again, or is this the end? I don't know. Standing in the rain, feather down in my brain. I was doing silly things just to make you mad. In between red and blue, yeah. Tell the truth, there's nothing to lose. Where already gone and it's late, so it's best that I be home. You told me to let go. In between red and blue, yeah. Tell the truth, there's nothing to lose. Where already gone and it's late, so it's best that I be home. I'll leave you to it now.
Such a bop though. So instead of say like they still fit everything within that 8 tracks, and of course after further diving in, you realize that yes, they did some hacking also here and there. So if you realize that the drum rack over here, you see this little just zoom in a bit. Yep, see this little MIDI climb. So this one is like they sort of use the slicing feature. So they sort of slice the a loop, for example, and then they host it within multiple drum rack pad, and they sort of play it like consecutively. Of course, I suppose I'm not sure why they didn't just host it right within a clip and then just warp it and then let it play. But this is one of the trick that you can use. So like technically they host quite a few tracks within the drum rack itself, and then definitely you will see like drums, they add in like loops and breaks, they play with it, and then of course you will have your typical other instrument here and there. But of course some argue that they did host quite a bit of a more advanced instrument. So you see like here you can also see it is an operator, but there are no way to access it because it is a so maybe I would be able to operate to access it because I did own the Live 10, right? So but if you say you only have the Lite version, there's just no way to access it. They will sort of play it back, but then you probably have this wave selector that you can sort of choose a bit here and there. I suppose you still can copy this out and then you sort of use it as an instrument, but yeah, there's not much things you can do to really tweak it, right? And same goes to, let's say, like Plastic Toy, and then you have like Synth Key. Same, this is a wave table, I suppose, and then you have Synth Flute, right? So yeah, drum rack, they do have drums, and then as mentioned, they slice the loop to really fit to different parts. But yes, this is still 8 tracks, and that is one of the proof that although yes they use their more advanced instrument, but you can do quite a lot with 8 tracks. Sometimes limitations do push you in a way, because like sometimes when there's a lot of choices, we tend to get lost. And with limitations, sometimes we we work within the limits. We hack it a bit. You extend it to maybe 2 or 3 more tracks. Layer it using instrument rack, and also drum rack to host different loops, for example. But still, 8 tracks. Let's dive into it even deeper and see their mastering is literally just a master punchy dance. That's it, right? And you see, with micro variations, like within a preset itself, you can have different presets. So see, like even like master punchy dance before the Live 11 era, you wouldn't have this, right? So you like whatever they give you, that's it. You have to go in and sort of tweak it one by one on your own. But now within the preset, they have even more preset. So you can choose like in flat, like compression, heavy compression, boomy, bright parallel, for example. And yeah, you can sort of throw in a lot more. Even like something as simple as let's say like let's just go for a drum kit, for example. So if let's say you are to host like a typical 808, for example, the most simple one, you will still have different presets for 808, right? So you want it to clean, you want boomy, you want lo-fi, you want hot. And there's a new randomize feature. So you can click randomize and they can just throw you a different sounds. And yesterday I was playing with it and I just played randomize and they sort of give like a very interesting 808 tone that you're like, oh, this is a very nice idea, general spark ideas, basically, just to give inspiration. So sometimes all you need is just that sound, and you're like, oh, I have this idea to do certain things because maybe it reminds you of particular song, for example. And yeah, you can do quite a lot of things within. Now they have presets within presets, right? So it's like a presetception within the whole instrument, and also mastering racks, instrument racks, and all those things, right? And yes, still, 8 tracks can still do a lot of things. And Ableton workflow, that is the one thing that really I suppose like once you sort of get into a DAW, for example, I suppose like it might not work for everyone, but having options, to just play around, experiment with things, and see which one fits you the most, right? And for me, that is Ableton Live. And once I did started off with a DAW called Energy XT. It's like super long ago when I bought my first Behringer. I think it's like URC22, the little red box phono USB. So it comes with that, and I was using it, not feeling it, and then my friend just introduced me to Ableton Live, and I was using it since. I started off with Live 8, and now we are in Live 11, right? So Ableton Live works the best for me, and now I'm super passionate about it. Now I'm teaching Ableton Live. I'm sharing about Ableton Live, like how to really maximize even with Ableton Live Lite. And hopefully, you'll find all of our other videos useful. So we did talk about, how to sort of tackle the 8-track limitation. We will leave a video down below and I'll link later on. And we also talk about, like basic in like compression, how to sort of, create instrument racks to sort of split like different instruments or thing. But yeah, that technically falls within that whole hacking the 8-tracks limitation sort of video. So inside there we talk about quite a lot of things, right? So it is a pretty short video, I think 5 minutes, but then both sort of covers quite a lot of things. And we receive requests that to explain a bit more, like for example, like how do you layer, split use instrument rack to sort of host 2 instruments at once, right? Because in instrument rack you can sort of split keys. So technically you can host a bass and then you can host a maybe like a higher range arpeggio, and just by that you're using one track, but technically you are playing 2 different sounds using one track, right? So that's one of the way you can use. And in fact, even within that whole range splitting method, you can technically still use a lot of their pitch control things. So let's say even if say you only have like a higher range key, but you can sort of still pitch it down to play chords of lower range, for example. So there are a lot of things you can do. Of course, it takes some extra time to go in and tweak it a bit. But then, more so like now, like everyone's is still battling pandemic, and Malaysia is not halfway there. In fact, it's getting worse. So I suppose investing in a full-fledged DAW, it's probably will take a lot of budget. So if let's say you can use within just work within your means, and if let's say you only have access to Lite, you can still do tracks like this. Of course, maybe if you don't have a wavetable, you don't have analog, for example, you can always just go and download. There are a lot of other VSTs, free solid VSTs, for example, like a Tile Noisemaker. They recently updated their user interface, which is like pretty slick, and you can do quite a lot of things with that synth itself. And then there is Helm, and then there is, of course, recently the Helm creator released a pretty solid synth that is also free. I forgot the name, but yes, that basically that there are a lot of free stuff out there that you can use to do your song, right? So I suppose since it's just launched, so 8 tracks is probably gonna stay for quite a while, because version updates are getting smaller and smaller. I think 8 lasted quite a while, and then 9 also lasted quite a while, and then I'm surprised that 11 is announced that fast, because I was expecting Live 10 to at least update 10.235 at least, and then they would have 11. But it's understandable. Nowadays it's pandemic, and to be fair, they did give up free giveaways during last year, even the whole long 6 months trial period. So they probably they need to cover their operation costs and this and that. So it's definitely understandable that they are taking towards this route, right? But still, Live 11 Lite, it's still a pretty solid update. We have just to recap, we now have up to 16 scenes, right? Scenes are pretty much the performance centric, so all these little notes here. So fun fact, all these little notes here are what Medion used to perform his viral I wouldn't say it's a track. Technically, it's just a performance video, because then he never really... Did he officially release it? I'm not so sure. But pop culture. So pop culture, this whole launchpad thing, they're all hosted within all these little boxes over here. So they just sort of chop different snippets of songs, and then they just trigger it on live, and then they use follow action functions, which also improve in the latest Live 11. And then we probably didn't really touch much on the tempo change and time signature change, but this is one of a new thing that it's a good addition to the performance side of Ableton Live Lite. And of course, there is groove, and then there is scales, key and scale editing. So you can go here and you can set your scale, and then they will sort of highlight it, and you can sort of course this is a drum, but then if you go into, for example, proper MIDI notes, and it's just a lot easier to for newcomers who don't have a lot of musical theory knowledge, and to get them started into making theoretically correct sounding stuff might not be the best, because in the end this is the one thing that we've been talking about, this whole controversy about, how technology has been making things a lot easier to make music nowadays. But, all these things are there to, give you ideas. For example, generative VST, we have key locking, scale locking, we have samples, we have MIDI templates, all these things there. But all these things are just there to, get you started. If let's say you don't have the musical sense, you didn't really study a lot, you didn't research what is good, what is bad, and even though you can fold scale, you can play the C major scale perfectly, doesn't mean you can create a decent sounding track, right? So same goes to this whole DJ controversy about sync button. So like DJ is all about your musical taste, right? So of course, like, we can sort of tackle into the whole concept of like scratching and other things where yes, those are like actual skill, but knowing how to use a sync button doesn't mean you're a good DJ, because maybe your song choices might not be the best, maybe you have bad musical taste, and even with sync can't save you from that. And with sync button, I've sort of recently explore a lot of creative DJ sets where they do like a lot of live mashups using sampling CDJs to really create a very, very, very nice mix of both mixes and mashup remixes. And that is what technology allows you to do. They sort of free your hands up to to not do the mundane stuff. For example, like quantize. For example, before quantize, you probably have to go in and play every note very, very precisely. And if it's wrong, you have to go and drag it one by one. But with all this quantizing, they sort of save you from all those things. And same goes to scale and key. They sort of save the more theoretical part of things, and you just focus on making good music, right? And I'm very excited to see what especially the next generation of musicians and producers can really produce with the ever increasing ever improving technology nowadays, right? So, and with that, we sum up with this session of sharing. Technically, it's been 15 minutes. It doesn't intend to be so long. I was aiming to be like 10 minutes or 15 minutes the most, because it's just really just to share features of Live 11. But yeah, you sort of got carried away and you share different stories, and you sort of explain a lot more on different things here and there. Initially I was thinking like we should make some beats, but then let's just keep it for another day, right? So if you're new to the channel, do subscribe. Although we don't really upload as often, but we are trying our best to really try to do more content for you guys, more live sessions of like actual beat making. So if I say you have like actual questions, you can ask straight away. Of course, we understand that there are a lot of other beat making channel out there, more so during the pandemic when everyone's like cooped up at home and you just do a lot of content, right? So still we do appreciate your support, and we have a lot of free stuff also. Do grab our free sample pack. You can get, I'll leave all the links down below to all the 8 tracks hacking video, our free samples, and there you can also find our affiliate links. So if you purchase plugins, you purchase samples through our affiliate links, it will greatly support the channel. And with that, we conclude this session. All right. Thank you for tuning in. We see like there's not much viewer. I think like thank you for the 2 concurrent viewers now, and the 3 likes. Right, your support is super greatly appreciated. Right. So, and with that, see you guys soon, and do take care.